There's no such thing as sight reading. And skipping the repetition phase or skipping to the repetition phase are both bad. Many students that are not musically literate, students who focus on technique and muscle memory, will skip directly to the repetition phase because that's the only way they can play the music. They read one note at a time and they practice the technique and they grind it out hundreds of times until they can play the piece. And at that point, many of them play at a very high level, as long as you don't ask them to play anything else. But we have all-state players here in Texas every year, maybe the majority of them, and that's the way they practice their music. The problem is as soon as the audition or the performance is over, because there was never any effort to store that information intellectually, it was all just mindless muscle memory. And so as soon as they take a couple days off, all that information disappears as if those hundreds of hours of practice never even existed. Now, the problems I have with a lot of my students is because they are musically literate, they can learn the music at a very high level very, very quickly. And at that point, it's hard to motivate them to then, now that you can play it perfectly, now you got to repeat it hundreds of times until it becomes mastered. Because they can play it perfectly, but they can only play it perfectly while they're thinking about it. And so if they're in a performance or an audition and they get nervous and their mind goes blank or their mind even wanders to another subject for just an instant, boom, they fall apart. And so lots of times, the illiterate players will go to a contest and they'll win out over the literate players because the illiterate players don't have to worry about their mind going blank because their mind was always blank, right? It was all just muscle memory. The literate players, if they're not thinking about it and it's not mastered, they're going to fall apart. And so don't skip the repetition phase, but don't skip to the repetition phase either. My name's Mark Dooley. I've been a private music teacher for 36 years, focused on practical theory and music literacy. If you'd like to hear more, follow me. If you like lessons, contact me. If you can learn how to read words, you can learn how to read music.